This episode of Made in America is brought to you by America's Inventor Lady and Home Talk USA. Home Talk is a proud member of the King's Broadcasting Network, which has been bringing you the best in home-based innovation since 1998.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us for this episode of Made in America.
This segment is brought to you by the law offices of R.P. Baraska. RPB law offices have been bringing corporate-level legal expertise to the independent inventor community for more than 20 years. For all your inventing legal needs, trust rpblawoffices.com.
Hey, welcome, America. That's right. We want to welcome all of our audience that was tuning in to the Invent America show right here on Invent America Radio, and I welcome all of you. But this is the Made in America segment of Home Talk USA. I am the Cajun Contractor. I am the originator, not the duplicator. Please don't accept no substitutions. Did y'all know I was green before green was even cool? And now I'd like to welcome the co-host of the show, the Inventor Lady herself, Miss Rita Crompton. Miss Rita, great job as always. Hey, I'm excited to have our next guest on, and so welcome, Miss Rita.
Thank you so very much. And, it's so much fun to, get the inventors on. Damon has got a wonderful story, multiple chapters in his story. And, it's really fun because the first time I visited with him, Mike Ryan from Pronto Launch saw his listing and he goes, "Oh my gosh, I've been selling him that product for years." So, it's kind of a small world, but it's really fun when we see things happening that pulls us all together for Made in America.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, we did a show, and man, the social media has been lighting up. Some of the comments that I was getting on social media from some of the companies that we, not individual companies, but you remember a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about products that are actually made here in the United States. Actually, I did a report 2 weeks ago when the federal government's now coming in from the Justice Department to the Department of Commerce. It's actually starting to investigate and actually finding companies that's misleading the American consumer on products that simply aren't made in this country. So it's a crackdown going on. And you remember a couple of weeks, we just kind of jumped into it. It was just an informal discussion. And boy, did we light up the sky here. And in our meetings, we had a discussion to say, you know what, let's discuss some of the challenges of really finding real made in America products. What is the science? What can the consumer really focus on to make sure that they are buying an American-made products? Because, just because you see that American flag on there or anything that's a variation, that necessarily doesn't mean that the product's made here in the United States.
That's very true. Companies went through a phase where they would just use the logo Made in America, and it really wasn't. So, it's nice to see some of the tightening up of that and proof. You've got to have proof. And so a lot of times you can go, if you do some due diligence, and, when I'm out there and I'm buying a product and I see it, I actually go look and see, is this made in America? And, see, what the address is and what's going on. But I've learned about, price points and how to tell the difference. And a lot of times you can get a pretty good idea if you just pay attention as a consumer, that you want something that's made in America. You can find it, but you got to look for it.
And I want to mention now we're talking about assembly. We're talking about manufacturing plants. Now, I do recognize, because this is one of the shots that I'm taking right now, is that okay? What about raw materials? What about materials that have to be outsourced abroad? That's not what we're talking about here, because it happens that there is some products that we have to offshore, inshore the raw materials. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is two factors here. The first factor, we're talking about foreign offshore companies that's buying, so to say, or investing in an American-made company, but actually manufacturing it overseas. And then obviously the companies that are actually just outright committing fraud. So there's a whole bunch of factors here. But what we're talking about is assembly. What we're talking about is providing jobs, infrastructure. Right, Reed? This is what we're talking about. Assembling here.
I mean, things it's complicated at best. It's complicated. All right. Certain products, you're right. They can't be done here, and yet we need them. All right. So then which, products are made here that have got the technology? And so, it's complicated. Price points are a big deal. There's certain things that, you don't have that option. Other companies are bringing stuff in and assembling here so that they can have, an eye on the product and the quality. I know that, one of the inventors I've had on, he's had to bring in parts of his, and then they're put together and assembled in California. And then they're shipped back out all over the world because he sells worldwide. Yeah. And so, that's really cool. But it's complicated, and you're paying attention to why it's complicated, and dealing with it.
But also, what's happening, Rita, and we discussed this, is happening. It's just the reverse effect, where certain raw materials are here in the United States. Now, picture this: what's happening? The companies are exporting the raw materials, right? So they can manufacture the product offshore, and then import it back to the American warehouse and distributing here to the local distributors. You see, so then I have a problem with that, because actually they're shipping it out to make it to ship it back in, and in some cases, because the workload and the craftsmanship, the labor force is so cheap over there that they can upset the difference of price and actually resell it back to us at a lower price after we already shipped the raw materials.
Oh,
right?
Hey, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had a lady years ago, she invented a new type of flagpole. Very cool, but it had to hit certain price points. All right, nobody's going to pay $175 for a flagpole. And that was the price point that we got here in America. So we went to that other country over there and got, what was it going to be? $6.75, all put together, boxed, beautiful boxing, packaging, everything, and delivered on a pallet here. And the stinky thing was that they were shipping the aluminum from America to this other country to make it and then send it back to us. But now, as technology is changing, now, all right, where you don't have to have all the people there, you've got more automation and everything. Now we're starting to be able to be competitive, and their price points are going up and ours are going down, which is great.
But again, I have no problem with that. That's e-commerce. That is capitalism. But announce that you're doing that. Don't slap that American flag on that product. That's the problem I have. Look, this is capitalism. Capitalism is the fine. Look. Let's give our president real. He's taking shots right now, but let's just give him due what products are doing. Made America great again, and make products here in the United States. The point I'm trying to make is that do not misrepresent what you're doing. But capitalism works. But we just want the consumer to understand, because it's not fair to the American consumer that's playing, not the consumer, the American manufacturer that's playing by the rules, right? Providing all insurance, providing quality of life, infrastructure, tax base, school system, all that stuff that a manufacturing plant provides in a community, that all that's being wiped out. And
Absolutely.
And I need to tell you, and I know this has nothing to do with Made in America, but I'm going to take it one shot. I'm not going to say it, but you see that Empire State, what's happening over there? I'm going to make another prediction. I would say in about another 5 years, Dallas is now going to be the Wall Street of America. And I'm going to predict it right here on this show, because this is what's happening. You're running out your businesses due to whatever reason you want to get to. And that's a political show, but the point is, it's all tied in together, because you cannot run good American companies out of America in the same token. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They're gonna have a serious problem over there in that Empire State. That's all I'm gonna say.
Wall Street will be in a Dallas.
That's right. Oh yeah, it's going to be here.
It's coming. We see
Yeah.
businesses saying that they're exiting all the time, and
Rita, here it is. Our 20-second mark. We're gonna have to go take a break. All right, this is Made in America. I'm the Cajun Contractor, Michael King, along with Rita Crompton, the Inventor Lady. We're gonna be right back with our first guest. Y'all come back now. You hear? Yeah.
This segment is brought to you by SearchQuest Patent Search. SearchQuest provides for a comprehensive patent search that searches the entire world and not just the U.S. Patent Office. Make sure that before you spend those big bucks having a patent written, you've done your due diligence by getting a comprehensive patent search. Use SearchQuestPatents.com for all your patent search needs. They scour the world for you.
Welcome back. This is the Made America show right here on Made America Radio on the Home Talk USA radio family. I am the Cajun Contractor, Michael King, along with the Inventor Lady herself, Rita Crompton. Miss Rita, I know we have a sponsor. Who's helping us out this hour?
Our sponsor for this segment is the RPB Law Offices. RPB Law Offices have been bringing corporate-level legal expertise to the independent inventor community for more than 20 years. So for all of your inventing legal needs, trust rpblawoffices.com. And my guest for this episode of Made in America is Damon Melcho. And Damon, eventually I will get that last name said exactly right. But I need practice. And so how close was I?
Melcho.
All right. All right. Excellent. All right. So you were on a couple of weeks ago as the inventor, manufacturer of extreme bait tanks, but you had purchased then another technology that works with yours. So tell everybody, what is Danco Venturi?
So in our bait tanks, just to reflect back, there's three major components: filtration, oxygen, and circulation. And when you combine those three things perfectly, you get a great environment for all baits, all sizes, fresh and salt water. So the oxygen is what we refer to as dissolved oxygen. It's the amount of air in the water that fish have to have, whether you're a bait fish or a big fish, in order to survive. So there's a component, it's called a Danco Venturi. And I apologize, I think my trash man decided to come just as we came on. No, sorry about that.
It's okay.
Sounds like he's angry too. This Venturi, so the Venturis have been around forever. And what this particular piece does is it's designed and engineered in a way to infuse the air that we breathe, which is 18 to 21%, right into the water by breaking that air up microscopically. And I know you're a night crawler person.
I am.
He's committed. But when it comes to dissolved oxygen, it is so important that you don't just have air in the water. It's not just your bubbles, it's micro bubbles, diffused oxygen, because the smaller the bubble, the more air that hangs in the water. And that's key. So 25 years ago, Dan, where the Danco name come from, he was fishing, I believe it was out in Arizona, and his bait was dying. This was before any type of Venturi. So he's like, I've got to come up with this. And this guy's an engineer background. And he came out with this little piece. And that's all the size. It fits in the palm of your hand. If you research venturis or water venturis, you'll see some that are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times bigger than this. This is the smallest of its kind, the only kind that I've ever seen. And I approached Dan several years ago because I knew if this piece ever disappeared, I would be back at square one with my bait tanks because without this, I don't have a business. And Dan finally agreed that it was time to put the business into the hands of somebody that was making an impact on the bait tank market, which was extreme bait tanks. So myself and a couple other people got involved. We were able to acquire the business, assume the ownership of the business. And what I loved about the piece, not only was how effective it is, made in America, right there in the Carolinas, and it's an injection mold piece. And there's several sizes and a couple different types. So if you're ready, we have time. I can go into that. You ready for that now, or
Well, I want to back up just a little bit because you were
okay?
talking about, we all know that there is oxygen in water because the fish need oxygen. They just absorb it through their gills. Shoot, you learn that in what, second, third grade?
Right.
All right. Yes, we see when people jump into the water and the bubbles come up, either, voluntarily or, in scary mode and stuff. So we know that there's bubbles in the water. How does a venturi, all right, take air that we're breathing out and about, all right, and turn it into something that you don't see as bubbles, but is there for the fish? And what happened to the original oxygen?
All right. So this piece is tapered. It's funneled. There's this nipple here is for an airline that connects. And once that's connected, you give the Venturi a clean air source. The Venturi is then hooked to a pump. So I said you had circulation and filtration. So the circulation, the pump pumps the water from the filtered area over to the bait side. And as it passes through that chamber, it's designed in such a way that it will draft air. That's the Venturi effect. And then once it hits the inside of that venturi, that's what busts it up into microscopic bubbles. So it's introduced over to the bait as dissolved oxygen. Now there's three sizes, what we call 5 and 8 and 11. And that's to determine the size pump. So if you have, like, for example, this is a number 8. This is regulated for a 500 to 800 gallon per hour pump. If you put something less of a pump on it, or more, less will not bring the air in, and more will cause back pressure, which will cause water to squirt out the airline instead of bringing air in. So depending on what type of pump you're connecting to this will determine what size venturi you need to accomplish what you're trying to do. Did that answer your question?
It did. And we're going to go and take a break, pay some bills, come back here in just a second. We're going to talk some more about, how the Venturi, Danko Venturi, and Extreme Bait Tank. Just so you know that our listeners understand more about. I find the science fascinating, but I'm kind of a geek anyway. But it's interesting to me how it all works together and why it's so important. So everybody stick with us. We will be right back after we go and pay some bills. But if you know somebody out there who is manufacturing in America and would love to be on the radio and share their story, it doesn't matter. I love the new ones. I love the older ones. I love the companies that have been around for 50 years or 100 years. I know that the gentleman last year, they'd been around for more than 100 years. And oh yeah, he was a young guy comparatively. So you know what? We are going to be right back with another segment of Made in America, and we love to be able to tell the stories. So stick with us, everybody. We'll be right back.
If you're an inventor or you know an inventor out there who would just like to be able to have a conversation with other inventors, join the Inventors Roundtable. It's free. The meetings are virtual, so you can be anywhere in America and talk to another inventor. And for a lot of folks out there, understanding the process, being able to ask questions, Getting good service provider information is critical to the inventing process. So, got questions? Want to join? It's free, inventorsroundtable.org.
Thank you so much for being with us for this segment of Made in America. It is brought to you by Product Quick Start. Noah McNeely is the president and CEO. He has been helping inventors do their prototyping and set up for manufacturing for decades. So if you know anybody out there that needs some help with a prototype, Noah McNeely and Product Quick Start. My guest for this episode of Made in America is Damon Melchoy and Melcho. And, get those vowels going. All right. So, the science is fascinating and how you bought technology because you didn't want that technology to disappear or your company would disappear. Interesting how those all work together.
No kidding, right? So
Yeah.
what's really cool about this Venturi is it was a problem solution piece. And you go back 25 years, the gentleman had a problem and he created this, and now it's a solution not only for him at that time, but really for anything that swims. I look at it like this, there might be a half a dozen bait tank companies out there, and think of them as cars. You have Ford, Chrysler, yada, yada, yada. Everybody buys tires, but there's only one tire company. The Venturi, there's only one Venturi. And this piece has been around for 25 years. That's how durable it is. It's not something that is a throwaway. We talked about being in a disposable community where we buy products. We don't expect them to last. Just like our bait tanks, we build them to outlast us. These pieces do the same thing as well.
So as you bought the company, and so you can use the with your product. And so now when you sell the product, are you selling them separately is my question.
Yes, we have a separate website, which is dancoventuris.com, and we take orders every day. And these are people that are DIY guys. They're building their own fish tank, a big tank. They'll take these totes, and they have to figure out how to circulate, filter, and oxygenate the water without buying an extreme bait tank, for example. So they build these different filtration systems, but they'll buy these pieces, these Venturis, to connect to whatever they have going on in there to be able to add oxygen into the water. And they're good for your homemade tanks, your existing bait tanks, you bucket, whatever it is you're trying to turn into something for a bait tank, you can now do that with a Venturi just by adding it. It's that simple.
It's amazing. And again, I guess I just assumed that water absorbed oxygen from the air.
No, I mean, if I don't know the science behind all that, but I do know that if I don't have this piece, you cannot keep bait alive for any time at all.
So during this process, what has been your biggest challenge?
Of the Danco was simply getting the trust of the prior owner to want to allow somebody like me to have access and ownership of this business, because I hold this piece is the key to the castle, and we're open on the market. So we're selling to other bait tank companies. So think about that. I mean, I'm not that kind of guy that's going to not sell to these people simply because I want to make the sale on Extreme. I'm going to continue to do what I do with Extreme Bait Tanks, which is provide a superior product, phenomenal customer service, and provide the solution to the problem that these people are looking for. And if you're a bait tank company out there and you're purchasing this piece, you'll still be able to buy it. No strings attached.
Excellent. And so your extreme bait tanks are made in Kentucky.
Yes.
All right. And the Venturi is made in the Carolinas.
That's correct. Yeah, that's where the injection molding plant is. These are injection molding pieces. So there's a mold that's made, there's a special material that's created to make this, and it's an injection mold. When it's done, we have the pieces that we assemble into a complete venturi.
You know, how do you market? How do you get it out there? How do people, do they just know you're there?
So that's a very good question. And the prior ownership of the business never really did any marketing. I discovered them. I realized what we had and the value of it. And I was a customer to them. But as far as what you and I now know of marketing and the World Wide Web and tags and meta and all that, none of that was done. So I'm of the firm belief that this is a piece that doesn't exist anywhere, not only in the country, but the world, of this size, this compact, this efficient. And through talking with people like Kevin Cody and some other people, we're looking at ways to get this known to the world. Because, in my opinion, if you have anything that swims, I have a piece, we have a piece that you need to incorporate into your product.
So then how are you going to do that?
Well, just like we did with extreme bait tanks, it's if you understand the web with the website and the image scriptings and the meta and the coding. So when somebody's on a Google search and they're looking for a solution or they're looking for an item or a product, you got to know what those keywords are so that when they type them in there, you pop up and they're going to be like, "Oh, I didn't know this existed." And then from there, it's a domino effect.
It's interesting because 20 years ago, nobody would have
Yeah,
even understood what tags meant. A tag is something that you
sure.
find on a new shirt, not necessarily something that you put into an email and or a posting. They didn't
Yep.
know what postings were back then. So interesting way that things have changed over the last 20 years or so.
Yeah. It's insane.
It is, and it's at such a speed. It's like, okay, I learned how to do this. Oh, nope, tomorrow it changed. You got to learn it all over again. It's like, oh
Right.
my goodness, stand still, would you please?
Right. And I tell people the same thing. If you Google bait tanks, you don't have to type in extreme bait tanks to find me. Just type in bait tanks. So we're doing the same thing on the coding with these venturis, and we're learning what those key codes are. So when people are searching for this type of a piece, which is a solution to the problem they have, we're going to pop up and be able to offer Danco venturis.
Awesome. So everybody, I know that Damon was kind of showing this and we are on the radio, but if you go to our YouTube TV channel, you'll actually be able to meet him himself and see what he was showing off. So, it's wonderful to be able to see these cool technologies that don't really change over the decades. So much changes so fast. But this has been around, you said, for what, 25 years? And it's
25 years.
a basic science that hasn't changed. You've got to put oxygen in the water.
Right. They built a better mousetrap right here.
I mean, they've had, fish tanks for decades and
Yeah.
decades. What did they do before they had Venturi?
Probably more like spray bars. That was a way of whenever you have water contacting from above and spraying down, that you've seen that where there's a splash and there's a bubble. That was an old school way of putting oxygen in the water. And then you would also maybe have to take into consideration how many baits you would have. You wouldn't be able to keep maybe as many, but you could still get the job done.
Well, and people who have fish tanks, you see a, a lot of little fish and stuff in those tanks, and you see little air bubbles that are
Yep.
being pumped in. And
Yep.
so the whole idea is you've got to pump stuff in there, right?
Gotta keep the dissolved oxygen high, but not too high. And that's the other thing, since we're still talking dissolved oxygen, people will actually use oxygen, medical grade oxygen, with a stone to infuse into their water. But that medical grade oxygen is way above, or can be if you don't monitor it, above the 18 to 21% that we are breathing now, right?
Yeah.
Too much oxygen can actually kill your bait or fish too.
Huh.
So you don't have to regulate this. You just turn it on because
Okay.
it uses the air we breathe. It cannot exceed what we are using.
Excellent.
Yeah.
A nice piece that you added to that. So everybody, we're going to run off and pay some bills. It's coming up to the end of this segment. Stick with us as we will be wrapping up this episode of Made in America as soon as we come back.
TrueUp, the easiest way to hang your pictures. We all know how stressful picture hanging can get. TrueUp comes with everything you need to level and hang pictures with no damage and no mess. Just peel, apply the adhesive to the back of the TrueUp mount and press firmly. Remove the remaining adhesive. Use the level and press and hold for 3 to 5 seconds to attach the TrueUp mount to your wall with a strong hold. The TrueUp frame adapter is compatible with most frames on the market. Apply the adhesive strip to the adapter, stick, and your frame hangs easily on the wall mount. This lets you adjust your picture side to side for perfect placement every time. The possibilities are limitless, and it's easy on your walls. Picture hanging can be truly a one-person job. TrueUp, the future of hanging is here.
And thank you so much for being with us for this segment of Made in America. My guest is Damon with Extreme Bait Tanks. Extreme Bait Tanks, and the Danco Venturi products that are sold separately, and we will make sure that we post those websites for you, Damon, because I find this fascinating. I was always the one digging up the worms so I could go fishing with my dad, and same thing with my daughters. And then we actually got to grow up enough to actually go and get little minnows to go fishing with. But you're talking, bigger than just minnows. You're talking some major fishing. And so you've got to make sure that that oxygen is the right level. Kind of silly to spend hundreds of dollars on bait, get out there in the boat and find out it's all dead, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And there's not too many big fish swimming in the ocean that want their bait dead.
No,
Okay.
not too
All
many.
right. So what's next? How do you, we talked about the marketing stuff and the hashtags and stuff earlier, but how do you grow to the next level?
So, you were mentioning too, what's next and how do you market? And if you look at the evolution of extreme bait tanks and how we've grown from just selling some freshwater tanks in a couple of states to now being in 48 states and 9 countries, in my opinion, this piece is going to be another one of those items, because once the word gets out, you don't know what you don't know. And once people start to learn about this piece outside of the boundaries of the Carolinas, for example, coast to coast, because it doesn't matter if you're freshwater, saltwater, small bait, minnows up to 2-foot ladyfish, and even the catch and release guys that want to catch a bass or a striper or a catfish and then return them better than when they caught them so that they can continue to live. This piece solves that. So the next growth will be getting it on in some major retailers, working with some people to do that. Hopefully, maybe like Bass Pro, Cabela's, West Marine, some others. But I think boat manufacturers that have live wells, one of the biggest complaints I get from customers is they love their boat, but they hate their live well. Well, this piece could be one step closer to solving the problem of having a live well that does not perform. A live well that does nothing more than just hold water. It can condition that water. So what if you're putting something in it, you got a better chance of it surviving, so you can release it, or whatever you plan on doing with it.
Well, all right. So explain to us listeners out there that, aren't regularly fishing, what is a live well?
So most fishing boats, think of it as a big cooler built into the back of your boat. And it's a container that's designed to bring water in anywhere from 10 gallons to, I've seen them as big as 100 gallons of water. So they've got a live well or like a big cooler, they catch their fish, they open up the lid and they put their fish in this live well.
Well, duh. If you've got something that's called a live well, why wouldn't you want to keep the stuff alive?
Good point, right?
And then understand the science on how to do that.
And here's the thing. The boat manufacturers, any boat manufacturer that has a live well in their boat, already has a pump to bring the water into the live well. So all they got to do is put that in between, and now they've got oxygen in their water as well.
It seems so obvious, and
Yeah.
I am no longer a fisherman, but I get it. All right, it seems kind of silly to have a live well that kills the fish
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
the bait or
Yeah, a
whatever.
lot of people just use them for storage compartments.
I can see that.
Put their life jackets in there or something.
Oh, kids, go get your, well, a live well, get your life jackets out of,
There
the
you go.
live well so you can stay alive if the boat sinks. So, yes, all right. So, yeah, there's a little bit of fun in that. But, it makes sense that you would be able to go out and, sell the Venturi to these manufacturers so that now their live well actually works and keeps things alive, whether
Yeah.
it's caught fish or bait.
I mean, you're talking about a $50 piece to change the dynamics of a live well, unlike anything they've ever seen before. That's simple. That's
So,
simple.
where else would you use a Venturi? Where else would, you're into fishing, but would they
Yeah.
be able to use that somewhere else?
Think about it. The boat manufacturers or people in general?
People in general.
Anything that swims. Anything that swims would benefit from connecting a Venturi to that power source that you've already got set up. There's no tools. You don't have to build anything. You just connect it.
I would think that aquarium and zoos would be a great place to be able to talk to, they need this too.
We ran this piece in a 50-gallon aquarium here at the shop and had fish in it for 6 months. And I
Wow.
got thinking back when we were all kids and we had aquariums, it was like a big old jigsaw puzzle trying to put all that stuff together just to keep a fish alive. You brought home in that plastic bag.
Yeah.
It was so complicated. And we ran just the Venturi with a filter and a little box that we made in a 50-gallon aquarium. And we were able to keep fishing there for 6 months. So I'm like, man, I wish I'd have known this when I was a kid.
No kidding. No kidding. Well, Damon, thank you so much for being with us today. I am very grateful that you were able to join us. Everyone out there, we will be back next week for another episode of Made in America and talk to some of these wonderful people who are manufacturing right in our own backyard. Have a wonderful week, everyone.